Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. It's December 30th, going into 2020. Good riddance, 2020. Even though I did go pretty far, I was going into 2021. Okay, well, it might repeat. What I've done is, my name's Michael Wickerson. I'm at Wickerson Studios. I've got a very simple algorithm running here. And what you'll notice is I really didn't use much. I've got to cap holes, so I've got to put that into a C script. I've got a graph that I'm going to have to turn into a C script. I don't have to do this, but I'm kind of obsessive about this. I went into Raice's essential C# page and kind of customized and changed and made sure that I could run every node. And I'm moving away from icons, which some people don't like, but most of these things exist up here in all the basics, and things that don't or more complex, they are obviously being produced as plugins and coming out as algorithms. But what I've done is gone in and made myself a C area for just basic understanding of the C node, but the one I'm going into is Rhino geometry, and I really pulled in, for my sake, how I used to construct, but now I can actually have a little more versatility and go in and make some changes to these scripts. I'm going to learn C# this way in practice through the C# node, learning Rhino geometry. So as I go in, you can see I love the gene pool, generated 3 points, and I have a thing called create point and initialize XYZ. So I brought in a list of points that come into the gene pool, and I can definitely change them. I'm going to go here and just put this one into high. Actually, I might even leave it up there. Let's put on everything else that exists there. We'll put it over into shaded because it was in ray traced. And you can see what's happening. I've got a baked form, but I've already changed it once. I could go in here and make subtle changes once I have a form. So if you get something, and you could actually seed this so you could get back to it, because otherwise I'm never going to get back to these things. Or you could just blast it with a kind of 100% change. And what I've got going on here, and I'm just going to do some random changes. There we go. I'm going to tuck this object into the background for a minute, but there we go. We're still working off the same type of geometries as I make this kind of conical rose petal top, which I think is, I don't know if that's a good definition for it, but basically I have points that come out, and at any point I can go in and say, this script is too simple. And there's a very simple script of learning how to set up and instead make a new instance of a new point, using that as a constructor, the new constructor, which I'm learning about thanks to Jose Luis. I should say his name right, Jose Luis. And his C program has really inspired me. And here I am, Canadian, stuck down in Kansas, having fun, trying to bring a little digital arts and digital modeling to my sculpture class at the Kansas City Art Institute. And that's my goal, and that's what I'm going to do. So anyhow, I don't know if I'll be teaching C programming, but my next time I run my elective, the human hand and digital sculpture, it'll have an algorithmic modeling side, a computational side. It certainly will take the programming that I was introducing as Python into the C# node, because now that I've made all these little custom nodes, I can bring them to my class and have something very unique and show students how they can run those through. I've used an explode tree, which I could write another script for in C. I don't have any problem going back into the complexities of using these tree items and all the wonderful things that I know how to do in Grasshopper. But what I am doing is being very playful. So this is a constructor create line curve. So you can see here, I obviously want to make a line. So I go to the curve section and I go, okay, which one do I want to make? Now, they're pretty crazy to look at, so I'm not going to put these online for everybody because it's ridiculous. It's my language talking to myself. But I set them up as methods and constructors, so there you go. I can basically go in there and construct a line that changes. It's a very simple system of a line being made by XYZ, UVW, and XX, XY, and XZ. So a pretty simple script to change that little bit of this line that's going on. So you can see what happens when I start to make changes to this is that line transforms. And when that line transforms, you basically change the shape. You just balloon it out into this other wonderful pattern. It's pretty simple. And then what I did was took all these gene pools and just produced another open line pipe, because I used the same thing again. Why not? Actually, I should probably pair them up so you can see how simple this script is. I'm grafting that one, which is kind of nice. So actually, I can get this really nice pattern that happens. And then I'm throwing it into a brep, and then I can bake it if I want to. Now, I don't know if I like that one. I go back in, and if I want to really change it, then I'll blast it with 100% change on gene pool. But what I'm basically thinking about is kind of a surface cluster. And once I get something I kind of like, I could throw it into a full bake. It seems like something that might be manufacturable, closed forms. If you want to imagine it in metal, well, then just go in here and it's very similar to the system that's been drawn up through node clusters by ARA jewelers, which are a big inspiration to me, because conversations I had there. It's basically points in the lines, lines in the curves. And I do remember a conversation like we don't want to get rid of our cluster information because somebody will sit and tuck them into C notes. The goal here is this is the intermediate step. You want to be able to then write all of these in C scripts. So it's a simple cut and paste almost, even though that's not an efficient programming technique. But I'm not saying I program efficiently. I can node script a little efficiently with some graphs and some flattening, some data structures and relative items. But trying to do that in C, that's going to be a real challenge. And I think in a year's time, I'll probably move back away from node scripting and C here, have enough of a language, be able to write and type, not just in the GH node and translate this in the GH Python, getting better in the Rhino geometries. But this will become second nature of typing these up because when you play with them, it's not fun to write these scripts from scratch. It is fun to play with these scripts, and I think Daniel Schiffman at the Coding Train shows that with processing, that people can grab, and it's not about reinventing the wheel, something I've done for 30 years physically as an art form, making wheels. But at this point, I can take and pull from whatever I want. So this little item, I'm going to leave for a second, put it on so you're not seeing anything except for the baked form. I'll throw it into a little surface environmental tool, and there you can imagine this kind of in metal. This doesn't look so great there, but when you pop it back into here, and I just took it off for some crazy reason, probably because I'm excited. And there you go. You've got something that you can kind of play with. I've got a little bit of a render on there that I don't need. It's slowing down a little bit to do things. Let me just come back out of here. And we'll do a zoom extends all if I can get it in there. There you go. So you get a nice artistic rendering at the top. You get something pen, which I always like, and my technical on the side. It's pretty consistent with everything I do. And then you've got this, imagine this. And if you wanted to take that to a render or go into something like the render, you've got a background on it. You can start to imagine that. And if you really like what you've created from a simple C script, I'm going to call this kind of C scripting node-based C scripting with nodally in Grasshopper Canvas. That's what I'm going to call it. And I think some people who are obviously very intuitive or have to work from their hands, you can see this as it's coming about. It's making C# programming to me visually and fun and worth learning and digging in more. But once I get something I like, I'm not a front end person anymore. It seems I don't really want to do exhibitions or anything like that. I have to wonder where that form went. Let me assign that object to that. There you go. So now you get that nice little rendering and ray trace. It's loading up. It's moving pretty fast, but then you got to find the bake that you want. And there you go. You wait that and you take it to a render and you've got a little item. And it's made from pretty simple C scripts that you will learn. And I hope I'm onto something. I hope somebody wants to collaborate with me. I know Daniel Kristev suggested, he's got a lot more knowledge than me. If I could start finding forms of interest to people, there's nothing. I mean, jewelers are definitely, I've got a couple of people that I talk with regularly, architects, and those GH Python forums on Facebook I started 4 months ago have just blown up, a few thousand people, and just under a few thousand people. And then the C# is a private site if anybody wants to jump onto that. Please jump in if you have any interest in C# programming and how you can visually start to make some pretty cool things. I also am watching what's happening with Rhino and Gravity Sketch and Revit and where everyone else could take all this stuff. But where I am is I really am literally and coming from a dropout of math in the 1990s, way back 30 years, to see the visualization, to understand my data and what numbers are capable of. You can see nothing's being rendered here. I'd have to go back and shaded with that. There you go. You're changing the forms, you're altering it, and you've made a little cluster of a nice piece of metal that you throw on some fillets on here. You do a little work in Rhino if that's what you want to do and slow down. I want to get the most bang for my buck as fast as I can, and C# is it. Maybe I'll disappear like others are saying, that Visual Studio and Grasshopper slows down the idea of C programming and C# programming and Python programming. I'll discover that on my own. But if you consider I didn't start using Tinkercad or Tinkercode till this time 2 years ago, up in Canada, I went and met with my nephews, and they were like, have you ever worked in Python? I was like, no. I didn't even know what it was. I knew Monty Python, but I didn't know it. And to see how this has exploded and rekindled what's happening, I'm doing the most basic of stuff, but I'm doing it in a very particular and complex way for me, but not complex for the programmer out there. Complex in a way of people that visually used to move wax around and plaster and make molds, which is something I still do. But getting this technology and realizing I can start interfacing with robotics, I can interface with milling sand molds, I can find tool paths, I can change scale drastically, I can make it microscopic. It's such a power of going digital within your work if you spent 10, 20 years analog in your studies. And that's what I'm doing. Hopefully I'm becoming this kernel of light in a sense that people aren't so resistant to it and fearing like it's going to change everything. But change is not bad. Revolution to me just revolves us back to the same situation, but change within the system of what's there. Learn it. Work residually with what you got. Alter the dominant discourses that exist. And out of that comes beauty. And you might reach a level of sublime with this. I haven't done it yet with Grasshopper and Rhino, but I'm trying to get there. And hopefully we'll work on some projects. And I've got some good peers coming internationally. And I can figure this out, at least for the people after me, if I don't figure it out in my lifetime. Thanks very much for watching. Michael Wickerson, Wickerson Studios. Jump into the Facebook groups, private groups, GH Python and C# anytime you want. They're listed with a nice little node image of what this looks like. If you're actually looking for one, it'll be something that looks like that on Facebook. Thanks again for watching.